smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Hour number 2 officially underway for the early line right here on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. Davis and Donnie here in the morning. Hot topics. You know we cover them all, keep you updated here. And maybe a topic that came out yesterday that the NBA would like to bury as quickly as possible. In the past, we've seen issues with referees going a little bit rogue and calling fouls to try to cover lines. Hopefully the NBA was like, phew, we're done with that. But now we have an epidemic, maybe with the players, maybe not. The reason why we're finding out is legalized gambling is designed to catch these flags here and these betting irregularities. The guy we're talking about, the Raptors, Jontay Porter, lifetime ban from the NBA, was found to be gambling on Raptors games, gambling when he was in the G League, taking under props, but more importantly, sharing information about the Raptors and himself with other gamblers in hopes to cash in with winning bets here. And it looks like that's going to result in a lifetime ban. We won't see Jontay Porter playing in the NBA anymore here, Davis.
No, we won't. This is it's going to be a story that just definitely belies how you feel about sports gambling in general. Anyone who is like roughly involved with gambling understands, one, you could bet against this stuff. Jontay Porter could have done this in a much more, subterfuge style way before legalized gambling existed in the United States, offshores, like real criminal organization style stuff. And there would have been no body set up to catch it, right? The FBI would not have been involved. Regulators would not have been involved. It's not at all, not that dissimilar actually to the Otani translator story where he was dealing with actual bookie situation. I promise you, if Jontay Porter was doing this with some actual criminal organization, I don't think he would have been caught, honestly. I mean, maybe he would have eventually, but definitely not with the frequency. DraftKings noticed this after two separate incidents. They were like, something is fishy here. They alert the NBA, they handle it. The big outcome for me from this story, I wonder if this has any impact on Jontay's brother, Michael Porter Jr., of the Denver Nuggets. So for those who are uninitiated, these are brothers who were best friends. Michael Porter Jr. has supported his brother. They both went to the University of Missouri. Jontay Porter tore his ACL twice, something that Michael Porter Jr. has familiarity with. They rehabbed together because I believe they both had knee injuries at the same time. These are really good friends. These are guys who are involved in each other's life. Now, some of this stuff can be overblown. Michael Porter's job is to be a really good NBA player, and I don't think he'll let his personal life get in the way, but it could, right? I mean, it definitely could be one of those things where MPJ is just having a bad time. He is having a tough time. Obviously, I hope it doesn't influence him on the court at all, but it's definitely not good.
No, it certainly is. And as we welcome in the radio audience, you're watching and listening live here to the morning edition of the Early Line, Sirius XM Channel 159, right here on the SportsGrid Network. It is Davis. It is Donnie talking about Jontay Porter, and we won't see him again in the NBA. It's interesting, too, because the NBA comes quickly and says, we're going to level lifetime ban. The NFL taking a little bit different approach here, suspending games and seasons here. We'll see if the NFL does ramp it up. But based on an Adrian Wojnarowski tweet yesterday, some of the details that are coming into play for us here, Davis. Per league statement, the league's investigation found that prior to the Raptors' March 20th game, Porter disclosed confidential information about his own health status to an individual he knew to be an NBA bettor. Another individual with whom Porter associated and knew to be an NBA bettor, also $80,000. I mean, I actually thought that was a fake ticket. So we're finding out now, Davis, that was a real ticket where they were able to get down an $80,000 player prop parlay on Jontay Porter. That's pretty significant.
It is pretty significant. I would love to know the machinations that went into, bearding this account that let them do this. I mean, I wonder if these guys are smart enough to have been betting, $10,000 on sides and totals, doing these really dumb same game parlays to recoup this money. Cause you would have to. There is no way that you can just open up an account at FanDuel or wherever and, just start doing real huge numbers, because they also would have been banned immediately after winning one. So if that ticket that was floating around about the $80,000 same game parlay with the Jonte Porter unders, your account would have been limited immediately. It would have been like you could bet $11, moving forward. So they would have had to have been pretty smart and pretty sophisticated, which does not shine that well on Porter and his buddies, because it means that it was pretty dark. And it is, famously, they would always say, about like Pete Rose and stuff like, oh, he was betting on his team. Betting on your team to lose, granted it was a Raptors team that was tanking, is pretty brutal. I suppose if you wanted to put it in the most charitable light for game integrity, it would be, it wasn't that Jonte Porter was throwing games. It was that he's in the locker room every day and he knows this team stinks. Yep. We don't even want to win. We want to get a higher draft pick. So like I have that knowledge, so I'm betting on us to lose. But it's really not good, and it's horrible optics for the NBA.
No, it is terrible optics, and you're right about that, because some people don't understand like the concept of what actually takes place. And I always get a kick out of Pete Rose, who always swore he bet on his teams to win, but they go back and take a look at some of the films and some of the footage, and hey, Pete, your starting pitcher only went 1 2/3 innings here. What happened with that? Yeah, Pete Rose wasn't only betting on his team to win. He's probably betting more on his team to lose, because that's something that you can control. But also the betting optics there, you're right. If you sit in the locker room at noon, and what do we talk about here and always joke about on the early line? We handicap NBA regular season games between 8 to 11 a.m., only to laugh at the actual starting lineups that are going to be that night's game, which come out about 5 o'clock. Oh, look, 3 guys sit out. He gets that information first and relays that over. Hey, by the way, so-and-so's not playing tonight. This guy has an ankle injury nobody knows about. Go ahead and bet against it. But I believe the one that came out that was under scrutiny, he bet them to lose. And I believe the Raptors actually won the game, or at least he lost that bet, whichever he was able to place in that point. But you're also taking a look at, if it was LeBron James, Dame Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, like superstar players that are scoring 15 to 25 points at least on a night-to-night basis, maybe it doesn't raise as many flags, because those guys will get bet more and more. You take a look at Jonte Porter, 37 games played, 3.7 points per game, 2.6 rebounds per game, and 1.6 assists a game here. So also, I'm going to bet an under with big money, and Jonte Porter goes, my eye is I can't see so good tonight. I don't feel so well. My knee flared up, and you leave in the second quarter. That immediately here, Davis, raises the eyebrows. Easy to catch.
Yeah, and you want to know who was victimized by this, Donnie? I played Jonte Porter in NBA DFS the night he left with the eye injury, because he was starting.
Wow.
So their other backup center was out. I played Jonte Porter in NBA DFS. He was like $4,000. He was almost minimum salary. I use him in my center slot. And he leaves the game after, what was it, 3 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. So I have been personally victimized by the Jonte Porter betting scandal. And I don't appreciate it. A heads up would have been nice.
Yeah, how about that? That's a tough scene here. U.S. Integrity probably going to be making a phone call or a house visit over there to Davis Maddox, because he was betting Jonte Porter props in games that were in question. Tough scene out there on the market, but it is even more of a tough scene for the Porter family, as Jonte won't be playing basketball, at least U.S. basketball. Is he banned around the world? Could be so. Tough scene all the way around. Much more topics ahead right here on the Early Line.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's when he swung it easy at three-quarter golf swings, and he pretty much hit his number all the time. Dude, but when he hit something full, he hit it 20 yards over the greens at times. He's like, what are you doing? He's just smiley, happy, and a freakish athlete golf robot that's going to be right there winning majors for the next 10-plus years. It's amazing. Did you say he was smiling or smiley?
Only on SportsGrid.
they're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, yeah, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Hour number 2 right here in full effect, the early line. Sirius XM Channel 159, Sports Grid Network. Davis Maddock Donnie writes out, it's time to bring in the sports business professor right here, our very own Rick Horrow, sporting a hat, looking good. He's ready to go. How we feeling, Rick?
Good, Davis. I apologize. I didn't see you, and I thought I wake up to Ben every morning, and I started crying this morning. I didn't know why. Now I know. Now I know why. I just Davis. I apologize. It's like Wally Pipp. He's never going to get his job back, ever.
There you go. David, look, no slights here at this point here. Now, talking about waking up and crying, maybe that's CBS here, Rick, because let's get right into it. I enjoyed the Masters. I love watching the Masters on TV, but apparently we're down about 20% from last year on Sunday. What could be the reason why? Is it streaming? Is it wasn't compelling? Maybe Scheffler's not the guy that needs to hold that torch? Give us some looks at this.
Well, the arguments that have been used conventionally are number 1 and number 3. So I'll take this off. You can see the hair. How's that? So the streaming is something that Mark Lazarus, NBC Sports has been advocating for years. Combined the streaming, he had total activation numbers that NBC would put out. They're hoping the industry would adopt it. And as we know, most of the Augusta committee from Fred Ridley on down are funneling people when having a choice to that wonderful app. It's one of the best apps in the world. But the trade-off is if you're going to be watching the app and you're not a second screen person, you may not be watching TV. So you shouldn't be penalized. You should be lauded, but yet the industry hasn't caught up to that. And then as far as the riveting piece, you and I are golf people. We're riveted. I am really riveted to any kind of Masters. This was not a one-stroke drama, but it was a drama with all of the pretenders looking to the right, looking to the left, and then falling apart. The third piece is really important, which is that no sizzle. Well, look, Ben Hogan didn't have a lot of sizzle. A lot of other world-class golfers didn't have sizzle. What do you need him to do? To put on a kilt with no underwear and dance on the green after he makes a birdie? I mean, come on, man. The guy is a devout family man, and he deserves the benefits of not being ready to jump into song every time he has a good shot. By the way, one anecdote, and a Masters green coat guy who will remain nameless because I don't think he's supposed to say this, would say the calls about his wife and going into labor, they would be funneled through our committee. And I guarantee you that if he's 3 or 4 holes away from the final 18, he ain't getting that call. Oh, did you really say that? How about that? Yeah, that would have been
it's
possible.
definitely.
But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about all of that.
And look, I love golf. I'm locked into the Masters. I'm watching the ceremonial shots on Thursday. I'm top 1% golf viewer. I'm gonna watch the Corrales Punta Cana Championship this week. I did not watch the second 9. I did not watch the second 9 because what was the point?
Because
literally, what is the point of a golf tournament of Scheffler's up? This is what happened. Morikawa hits it into the water on 11, and I'm like, this is over. If Morikawa, who is the closest one, the only major winner who is chasing him down, if he hits it into the water, what's the point? No one is going to catch him. He was up 3. In fact, Scotty made bogey on 11 and was up by more strokes when he left 11 after making bogey than he was walking into it. So I get why this was not a high-rated Masters, Rick.
Well, look, I get it too. But I thought you were in the 1% of golf fans, and 1% of the golf fans would not do that. You removed any credibility you had at the beginning of the segment, okay? Because the bottom line of all of that is that we root for car crashes. We all do. So everybody's hoping that he pushes one slightly and goes into the water left on 16, or that Oberg. The biggest drama is at the end of the round, Oberg, does he finish second or third? Does he change his first letter of his name to O, or does he change his pronunciation to Aberg? Because you can't have both. I don't care where he's from. You can't call him Oberg and have an A on the word. But that's the most dramatic thing at the end of the tournament. And I'm kidding, of course, but the tradition, like any other, like none other, I'm not going to denigrate because it's prim and proper. We don't need drama of a one-stroke kind all the time. And I do understand that there are about 30% of the people who wouldn't watch the back 9. But Davis, we're ending this segment. I'm leaving. I'm very disappointed in you. Very disappointed in you.
Well, upsetting Rick, not good for ratings here on the network. We need Ricky ratings on here to boost that ratings here. Now, Morikawa dipping into the water there on the back 9. Probably not going to get a phone call here from U.S. Integrity here for some illegal betting strategies. But we're taking a look at Jontay Porter in the NBA, betting on yourself, betting against yourself, giving out information, unbelievable tendencies here. Talk to us here, Rick, about what the NBA is going through and why this catch-fail system worked with Jontay Porter and what's happening now.
Well, with him, listen, everybody ought to look at other sports and how the gaming industry has caused the leagues to bend over backwards legitimately, and establish integrity is really important and send messages all over the place. If you have any doubt, Calvin Ridley is a world-class receiver, and he was sitting out for what he thought was a minor indiscretion that obviously wasn't for a year. So this guy, the rule ought to be that if you are LeBron or one of the top 10, 20, 30 players in the NBA, you can play around a little bit with it. You can kid around. You can do some things, and your wrist is going to be slapped. Maybe heart is going to slap. But if you're number 9 or 10 or 12 on a team and you talk about how public you are, 3.7 points a game, I understand, 2.6 rebounds per game. I don't know how he got them, but he ain't getting them anymore. The ban is not only for him, but his pets, his family. I don't know if he can come within 5 million yards of an arena. So the bottom line is, if you're going to showboat about something as serious as gaming in the NBA or any other sport, you better be damn good on that team or you're going to be gone. You're going to go do something else for the rest of your life.
Well, that's a very good point. If Jontay Porter if Nikola Jokic was in this spot, I bet they would have found a way to avoid it. I bet they would have found a way to keep him around. Yeah, they would have kept him around.
By the way, Davis, hold on. You're now 1 for 2 because after the Master stuff, you're out of my doghouse now. That's a good comment.
It's a good batting.
All right, I'm back in. So very similar. We have a little bit of star power happening because the 2024 WNBA draft averaged 2.45 million viewers, largest audience in its history, quadruple last year's, more than the last 7 combined. I was locked in. I'm on the WNBA website trying to order my Caitlin Clark jersey so I can be cool, so I can have it. I told our producers, I said, look, every time I'm on this show from now on, we're doing 8 minutes on the Indiana Fever. I'm taking over on Caitlin Clark's 3-point props. Do you think this actually will be the beginning of the WNBA starting to be part of the cultural zeitgeist?
I'm going to see what leverage Davis Maddock has, because the next time I see you on the show, we're going to see if you get those 8 minutes. I'm going to take the under. But regardless, I do think it's a very important time for the NBA, WNBA, for women's sports. Look at this debate among the uninformed. We see all of these articles, and I've done a lot of media in the last couple of days. She's only getting 1/1,000,000th of Steph Curry's salary or anything else. Well, we all understand, if we know the NBA and we know basketball, we know the industry, we know why. And the fundamental reason why is that women's basketball doesn't generate the revenue. What does that mean? That begins a discussion about how is it going to generate the revenue. And all of this discussion about, Indiana Fever tickets going up 4,000%, and the corporate sponsorships are big. It's not only that she's actually doing something about it because of the way the money's going to start flowing in to the Indiana and WNBA, but it's also important for her as well as the industry of women's sports.
Now, Rick, you got about a minute to go. We always know how you love to take us into break. There's some hot topics out there to deal with. The floor is yours.
Wow. Interesting. So, I had a lot of thoughts. So let's go back to, Punta Cana is great, and I'm glad you're watching that. I was at the RBC for a day to watch kind of the setup of that event. That's going to be really good. The bottom line is, live and the PGA Tour's disagreements aside for that magical 4 days at Augusta. Let's see if the momentum carries us. It's up to the PGA Tour to strike a deal with their new investors so they increase their leverage. And it's up to the Saudis to come to the table as well. And all of golf will benefit. And if you want to hear more, stay after the break and watch these wonderful guys. We're coming back in a second.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's when he swung it easy at three-quarter golf swings, and he pretty much hit his number all the time. Dude, but when he hit something full, he hit it 20 yards over the greens at times. He's like, what are you doing? He's just smiley, happy, and a freakish athlete golf robot that's going to be right there winning majors for the next 10-plus years. It's amazing. Did you say he was smiling or smiley?
Only on SportsGrid.
They're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Otani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Things are popping on the early line, and we always state this. We always state this here. If there is breaking news, we will deliver it first. And that's what we're going to do, Donnie Rightside, Davis Maddock, because we do have breaking news. Let me set the table for this. Last night, we got a tweet out by Shams Charania, and it said, Miami Heat star Jimmy Butler is feared to have an MCL injury in his knee. Sources tell at The Athletic, at Stadium, the injury could sideline Butler for a period of time, MRI to come. So we were waiting this morning and brought you that information. Boy, when is this MRI going to come back? And here we go. 8 minutes ago, Shams Charania retweets out, the expectation is Miami's Jimmy Butler will be out multiple weeks. Butler remarkably played the final three quarters versus the 76ers last night and is what now to feared to be an MCL injury. Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat looks like, at least for this game we know coming up, he's not going to play in that playing game. But let's talk about big picture here, what the Heat might have been able to do with Jimmy Butler and now looking to be without Jimmy Butler, Davis. Tough scene here for the Miami Heat.
It is a tough scene for the Miami Heat. I guess I literally have to eat my words from about 27 minutes ago where I was like, I don't know, Jimmy Butler's playing. You know, I got to be honest. Jimmy Butler not playing with an MCL injury, that it seems crazy to me. Like, I just sort of like, I don't know, dude's indestructible. It's the Miami Heat in the playoffs. And it really, my biggest reaction to the story, Donnie, is basically like a police escort for the Boston Celtics into the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, who are they going to play, right? Like, they might get to play a Pacers team. Like, I don't know. It just really is all opening up for the Boston Celtics. Not that the Boston Celtics really need any help getting to the NBA Finals. And I guess this, in a way, is probably good for the 76ers eventually as well. I feel bad for Jimmy Butler. I feel bad for the Heat. Like, their whole we don't rebuild, we retool. Like, who needs first round draft picks? Not the Miami Heat. And I guess in the end, it'll be Jimmy Butler will be one of those guys where we really remember him at the time, you know, but in 10, 15, 20 years from now, no championship, no MVP, didn't make All NBA that many. I think he only made All NBA twice because he just doesn't play that, like, he plays a different style of basketball in the regular season. I'm very curious what Spoelstra does with the starting lineup. Like, does he put Jaime Jaquez Jr. in? Do they go super big? Do they go super small? Does Duncan Robinson start after being a DNP CD? That might be what they do, actually, because they'll just need some buckets. Like, they literally will just need someone who can put the ball in the basket, and Duncan can do that. I don't know, man. Spoelstra, I'll be very curious to see what Spoelstra does against the Bulls. That will be a very interesting game plan.
Let's play this out too, Davis. You get to Friday morning, right? And you see that update coming out that says Jimmy Butler upgraded to doubtful. Jimmy Butler upgraded to questionable. He's going to give it a workout pregame because you're right. This guy is usually like a machine out here that is just built out of steel. It's like, I don't care if my leg is falling off. I'm going to play here. But also, you might get one of those things that you love to see, Davis, a form of the zombie Heat that nobody expects anything from rising to the occasion because Spoelstra puts in a ridiculous game plan and those bench warmers there get into the game and start to play. So things on the horizon don't look that great for the Miami Heat, and we'll find out on Friday. More injury news around the association, which deals with the Chicago Bulls. Guard Alex Caruso has a significant left ankle sprain, and his availability for the game against Miami's 8-seed game, that one is in doubt as well. Andre Drummond stepped on his foot, and oh well, looks like we might be down players here for both sides. Tough scene all the way around, man. Guys getting injured, it's part of the game.
Yeah, tough scene all the way around. I guess that the Heat Bulls lineup, it became just like the Heat Hawks game, where it's like, who wants to win this game? Who wants to go get in the wood chipper to go face the Boston Celtics? Like, who is just absolutely begging to go get in this brutal matchup again? I mean, whoever wins this game, the Bulls win this game, good for them. You're going to lose in 4 games. I guess if the Heat win, Can the Zombie Heat win 2 games against the Boston Celtics just by getting in their heads? Probably. Like, Jason Tatum is going to be like shell-shocked going up against the Miami Heat. Like, no team has made Jason Tatum more of a basket case than the Miami. Maybe that's why they traded for Porzingis. They just needed someone who has not lost a playoff game to the Miami Heat to be in their rotation and to score in that game. Man, Spoelstra, I would love to be a fly on the wall for the coaches meeting with Spoelstra and his assistants for this upcoming game, because I know he's got the whiteboard out. I know he's got his video monitor out. He's like, look, guys, no, we're going to do this. We're going to come out in this defensive alignment. This is going to be our primary action on offense. It is just a chance, I guess, to win this game. It'll just be another feather in the cap of Eric Spoelstra.
A lot more shots up for grabs there for the Miami Heat. We'll see who gets them. Could Tyler Hero shoot 30 times on Friday night? Maybe he just does that. But let's also take a look at this game that will be played at 7 o'clock Eastern on Friday night. Chicago Bulls, Miami Heat. That line opened up overnight as a slight favorite towards the Miami Heat. It wasn't much to begin with, -2.5. Those numbers have now downshifted here to -1.5 based on this Jimmy Butler news, and a total that opened up at 209 overnight, now sitting at 208. Some outlets across the board showing 207.5. How does this affect it here? Is it still an automatic win for the Miami Heat, but no Jimmy Butler now? Can the Bulls pull this off and then go in to take on the Boston Celtics?
No, it's definitely not an automatic win anymore. Yeah. In fact, I would bet the Bulls might even end up favored by the time that this line closes. So let's say Rozier also does not play, so they're down Rozier and they're down Butler. I bet the Bulls end up like 1.5 point favorites, very slight favorites on the money line. That would be my estimation. Now, I would definitely bet Miami, even without Butler, at these prices at like 1 point or whatever, because even without Jimmy, the Miami Heat are the better coach team. I actually think they are still probably the better roster. Like we didn't talk too much about Bam in that 76ers game because Bam was going to be erased in that game. Like, he was not going to score against Embiid. His primary job out there was to just play as much defense on Embiid as he could. It'll be much different against Vucevic and the Bulls, because you can just score on Vooch. Like, Bam might take 18 shots in this game. In fact, I think that might even be their plan. Like, who on that Bulls roster, especially if Caruso does not play, and you're going with your 45 minutes of Ayo Dosunmu, Javonte Green, I guess, would start if Caruso was out. I mean, no one's really getting in the way of the Hero Bam 2-man game. Duncan Robinson makes 5 3-pointers, and all of a sudden you're talking about like a Heat blowout victory, which maybe, I don't know. What a weird game. Like two Walking Dead teams. The Heat are super banged up. The Bulls are very banged up. And what do you get when you win? You get to go play the best team in the NBA.
Tough scene out here because we like to talk about good information moving through with players coming back, and it's seeming like we're talking about more injuries. And here's one of those that was tweeted out yesterday with another Woj bomb. Pelicans forward Zion Williamson, left hamstring, is out for Friday's play in tournament. He's going to be evaluated in the coming weeks, which could mean they're not playing basketball anymore, and into the offseason the Pelicans go. A guy that was so dominant against the Lakers, shining in the right moment here, gets injured. Tough loss there, of course, for the Pelicans here, Davis.
Very tough loss. I feel, Zion is going to be, we will ultimately remember Zion for what never happened, right? We will remember Zion at Duke, this crazy athlete. His highlights looked ridiculous. He was supposed to be, he was supposed to be a center. That was supposed to be what Zion became. He was supposed to be a center who could defend the rim, who could put the ball. He was going to be a point center. And it never really happened because he kept getting injured. He was not in good enough shape. And he never became the defensive player that he wanted to be. And you can see how that really limited New Orleans roster construction over the years. Like, the fact that their centers are Jonas Valanciunas and Larry Nance Jr. means that, even in their heart of hearts, I think the Pelicans front office, Brian Griffin and those guys, they also thought that Zion Williamson was going to be able to become a center, and it never worked out there. So you have a weird roster with two bad defensive players, and Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and Zion Williamson, with some really, really good defenders. You have Herb Jones, who is maybe the best wing defender in the entire NBA. Valanciunas actually is a fine defensive player as well, just doesn't really fit next to Zion because neither of them really shoot three-pointers. Zion was also supposed to be able to eventually have the skill set to learn to shoot three-pointers, and then he stopped doing that as well. Whatever ends up happening in this secondary playoff game, okay, you beat the Kings. I guess maybe a zombie Pelican series against Oklahoma City. Maybe that is kind of fun. You've got the more wily veteran team with the Pelicans. You've got Herb Jones guarding Jalen Williams. You've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just basically doing whatever he wants with CJ McCollum at the point of attack. I mean, certainly as a Thunder fan, I don't mind that Zion is out of this game. I actually would be rooting for the Pelicans in this game. I would rather the Thunder get to go up against the Zionless Pelicans team. The Kings, I'm not afraid of the Kings, but the Kings roster as currently constructed, I think is probably better right now.
Take a look at some lines on the move. We talked about the Heat going from 2.5-point favorites to 1.5. We'll see where that line ends up. Also, with the injury information to the Pelicans, they opened up, Davis, minus 2.5-point favorite on the overnight lines here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Now they're not even favorites anymore. This line has completely shifted over to the Sacramento Kings, who are a minus 1.5-point favorite. Do you agree with that line move? Should the Kings be the favorite in that ball game?
Yeah, they definitely should be. I don't know if I would bet them. I would need to see who starts for Zion. I want them to just start Trey Murphy III because Trey Murphy III is one of the best players in the NBA that absolutely no one mentions. If Trey Murphy was on the Lakers, he would be more popular and make more money than Austin Reeves. He is just straight up better than Austin Reeves. And no one even knows that this guy coming off the bench for the Pelicans even exists.
No NBA action tonight, but we got a doubleheader set for you tomorrow. First game up 7 p.m. Eastern. That's the Bulls and the Heat. Second game up 9:30 p.m. Eastern. That's the Kings and the Pelicans. Now, we're going to talk more NBA action here. One of our favorite topics to do. It's buy or sell, people. Let's see what Davis has to answer here based on the association. We'll be right back here on the early line. Don't go anywhere.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's when he swung it easy at three-quarter golf swings, and he pretty much hit his number all the time. Dude, but when he hit something full, he hit it 20 yards over the greens at times. He's like, what are you doing?
He's just smiley, happy, and a freakish athlete golf robot that's going to be right there winning majors for the next 10-plus years. It's amazing.
Did you say he was smiling or smiley?
Only on SportsGrid.
They're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, yeah, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Talked about the Otani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Come on, we're just about getting heated up here in the NBA. We don't know exactly who's going to be 1 through 8 in the Eastern and Western Conference, but we're going to find out shortly, and away we go into the playoffs. Punching their tickets here, the Los Angeles Lakers, punching their tickets, the Philadelphia 76ers, 2 spots still up for grabs. But in this segment here, Davis Maddock, we're going to talk about what might happen in the future with hot topics and how this pertains. Let's take a look right here. Players that will be under pressure. Let's focus on Jason Tatum. We know he's one of the best athletes in the NBA, routinely top 5, top 10 in MVP. One of those players on a great basketball team that we expect sooner than later to win an NBA championship. If we take a look here at his playoff statistics, close to 24 points a game. You take a look at his playoff record, 52-42. Eastern Conference final appearances 4, championships 0. So this year, the Celtics look like they are the best team in the NBA. They should win the NBA championship. But my question and buy or sell for you today, Davis, is Jason Tatum is the star under the most pressure this postseason. Buy or sell?
I think I'm buying it. I would actually maybe even include his teammate Jaylen Brown in this one, because if you're looking at the two guys, who is more likely to be, subject of the fans wanting to trade him, the fans wanting to move on, the front office maybe wanting to move on, it probably would be Jaylen Brown. But it's really, I would maybe sell it and just say it's the entire Boston Celtics organization. It is Joe Mazzulla. It is everyone in the front office. It's Tatum. It's Brown. It's Horford. It is Porzingis. It's Derek White. It's Drew Holiday, who just got this big contract extension. But I'm buying it in general because the Boston Celtics have just been here as an organization so many times in the last, I guess, 7 years since they've had these two guys. And the results are they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. They lose in the finals. They lose in the first round the last year for Stevens. They lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. They lose in the semis. They lose in the finals. They lose in the finals. It's not a great playoff track record. And what does everyone always say about the Boston Celtics in the postseason? It's that the late game offense, Tatum, he's not LeBron, he's not Kevin Durant, he's not Steph Curry, he's not Luka Doncic. Tatum has gotten 90% of the way up the mountain. He's a great regular season player, but you look at MVP odds, he's always 6th in the MVP odds, and he never ends up getting the votes. He is probably the 6th best player in the NBA. Well, being the 6th best player in the NBA when you have these great teammates, it's awesome. But what ends up happening in the postseason is that how often would you say the team with the absolute best player ends up winning the series? It's crazy in the NBA how often it happens, which means when you play Nikola Jokic, when you play Giannis, when you play Kevin Durant, that guy is just able to get all the way to the top of the mountain. What does the pressure inevitably mean for Tatum? What are you going to do? You're going to trade Jason Tatum? No, you're not going to trade Jason Tatum. But if the Celtics lose in the finals or the Eastern Conference, if the Celtics lose in the Eastern Conference Finals to the 76ers, there is going to be anger in the streets of Boston. I can promise you that.
Yeah, players under pressure for sure. Luka, Nikola, Joel Embiid in Philadelphia. Even they say, look, well, they're the 7th seed. He's going to get a lot of heat for not getting the Sixers over the hump, which quite frankly just means get yourself to an Eastern Conference final. So it's a great question all the way through, but the Celtics are built for a championship. And if Jason Tatum does not play well and they get knocked out short of that championship, he's going to certainly get a lot of scorn from that. Let's take a look at this one. One or done. We're talking about OKC, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. Record this season, 57-25. Points per game, 120, and giving up around 113 per game. So we're looking for big things here, obviously, for OKC. The question in buy or sell, the Thunder are more likely to lose in the first round than win the title. How about that, Davis?
No, this is not right. This is, I think a good bit. And I mean, look, from a Thunder perspective, they did luck out a little bit not playing the Los Angeles Lakers, who are way better than the average 7-8 seed. And the Lakers were really good against the Thunder in the regular season. Who did the Thunder struggle against? I mean, the Thunder struggle against really big teams. They struggle against teams that rebound very well. That is exactly what the Lakers are able to do. As it stands right now, they're either going to play the Pelicans or the Kings. They're going to be playing a not full-strength Pelicans team and actually not a full-strength Kings team either. But I feel sort of like the narrative about the Thunder has gotten it's gone a little bit too negative for a team that is literally the 1 seed in the Western Conference. Like there's sort of this thought out there, oh, they can't beat a team that plays too big. I mean, how many centers do you think they played when they won 57 games? You think those teams did not have centers? They don't possibly know how to combat teams that play that big? Like Mark Daigneault just won Coach of the Year. I mean, why do you think he won Coach of the Year? Because he figured out how to play good, strong basketball with the team without a traditional ground-bound, big hulking center. His available centers are, I mean, Chet is like maybe the skinniest player in the NBA. The Thunder are extremely good, and no one believes in them because they're the 2nd youngest team in the NBA by cumulative age, I believe. Gordon Hayward made them a little bit older with that move at the trade deadline. And you could probably speak more to this than I could because I'm too close to it. But it also feels like people don't treat Shai Gilgeous-Alexander like he is at the same level of, a Tatum or a Doncic or a Giannis or whatever. And I mean, it's just not true, man. He is really that good.
I got a lot of feels from last year, like the Denver Nuggets, right? Oh, top seed, yeah, but they haven't proved it really. And they're top seed just by show here. Yeah, they played well in the regular season, handled their business, won an NBA championship. I'm not saying OKC can do that because I do think the Celtics overall are better. But the fact of the matter is they have a great matchup in round number 1. They're going to be rested for this. And it's a really good basketball team. We weren't even expecting OKC to overtake the Denver Nuggets over the final 3 weeks of the season, even to get that top overall seed. So big things on the horizon for OKC. They just have to go out on the court and prove it. Talking about going out on the court and proving it and staying healthy, that's the Suns here and their ceiling. Let's take a look at their odds here in the postseason. To win round number 1, -140 to the conference championship, which means taking down the Western Conference, +850 and an NBA title at 20-1. So the buy or sell here for us, Davis, is the Suns have the highest ceiling in the NBA right now. Buy or sell that.
Yeah, I'm totally selling that. I get at what we are. I get at what we are aiming at here. Which is that Kevin Durant at times has been the best player in the NBA. Devin Booker at times has seemed like the best scoring guard in the NBA. I think a little bit of what's going on is Bradley Beal is like a really good NBA player, but not one of the 20 best players in the NBA probably. But I mean, a lot of the guys who are in their rotation, Eric Gordon, Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic, Drew Eubanks, Josh Okogie, they're like, Grayson Allen actually led the NBA in 3-point percentage, but it never came together this season for the Suns. They never were all healthy enough at the same time. They just never coalesced. But the highest ceiling team in the NBA, I mean, how about the Boston Celtics, who were number 1 in the NBA in offensive rating, number 3 in the NBA in defensive rating. They had an 11.6 net rating, which means for every 100 possessions, they outscored their opponents by 11.6 points on average. Number 2 in the entire NBA, almost 50% worse, the Oklahoma City Thunder at +7.4. I mean, I think the Celtics have just as much a chance of flaming out in the postseason as they have, every year for the last 5 years. But there's no question in my mind, none, that the Celtics still have the Celtics are good enough that if they went 16-0 in the postseason or like 16-2 or something crazy, or went 12-0 in the Eastern Conference, I'm not even blinking. I'm just like, yeah, they are that good. Like, it's not surprising.
The Phoenix Suns here. Just when I thought I was out, they bring me back in. We'll see if they could do some damage here in the NBA playoffs. The big three are healthy. The sky could be the limit. Best in the league. Let's talk some duos and some tandems right now. Luka Doncic on the season, 34 points per game, close to 10 assists a game, and almost a walking triple-double. That's outrageous here. Kyrie Irving playing Batman here. It's a Robin and Batman. Take a look at this. 26 points per game, 5 assists per game, 5 rebounds per game. Buy yourself question. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are the NBA's best duo.
I mean, they might be the highest ceiling duo. You know what? The best duo in the NBA is Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, because it includes Nikola Jokic, right? He really is that good that I think it makes that probably the best and most effective duo in the NBA. But Luka and Kyrie are pretty darn close. Luka is actually kind of in it's not the same as Zion, but it's like we've yet to have the Luka moment, because Luka's been, he's really mostly played on bad Dallas Mavericks teams, like Mavericks teams with his teammates injured. Until Kyrie, I guess Mavericks Kristaps Porzingis was the best player he'd ever played in, but go back and look at Kristaps' numbers as a Maverick. He was just bad. Like he was not a plus NBA player when he was on the Dallas Mavericks. And they're definitely in the top 5 of NBA duos. It's like, okay, we've got the double J's there in Boston. We got Durant and Booker, to the aforementioned Suns question. They're definitely top 5, but I don't think they're the best. I'm giving it to Jokic and Murray.
How about that? There you go. Dynamic duos here. They got to play well for the Mavericks to move forward, but quite frankly, they've been playing really well here. Let's take a look at from close to concern right now. That's Kawhi Leonard. How about this? His playoff games per season. 2019, give me that championship, 24 games played. 2020, 13 games. 2021, 11. 2022, 0. And 2023, 2. So the buy or sell question here is Kawhi Leonard's body. Can it hold up for the entire postseason here, Davis?
This is a pretty sad one, and it would be a lot more sad if Kawhi had not won that championship with the Toronto Raptors. Which, going back, is actually, it's kind of crazy to think about it. Which is that he won that championship with Toronto and then just peaced out. He was like, "Thank you, Toronto, for the memories. I really enjoyed my 8 months being a member of the Raptors organization, but actually, I'm out." I'm selling it. I'm selling the idea that Kawhi Leonard can stay healthy for an entire postseason. He's already coming in with an injury. Now, he was spotted at the team shoot around yesterday, so it seems like he's going to be good to go for the beginning of this Mavericks-Clippers series. But I have seen so many chances for this Clippers team to figure their stuff out. They have not been able to figure it out really at any point. I'm selling it. I think it'll be, maybe they do end up beating the Mavericks. Maybe it's game 5, it's tied 2-2, and then we see Kawhi go to the locker room in the second quarter, and then we never see him again. He was just like, oh, where'd Kawhi? No one knows. No one knows where Kawhi is. Kawhi is not here. It's all on Paul George and James Harden. What a terrifying sentence. Your team's postseason success relies on James Harden deciding to show up to work and do his job the same way he did in the regular season.
Yeah, we should do in-play sports tonight, both myself and Kevin. And when the Clippers would come up, it was always interesting because that one playoff run that the Clippers had, it was Kawhi Leonard was questionable on a night-to-night basis. But little did we know he had a torn ACL that nobody would release, and nobody could get any pictures from practice if he even had shorts on. And we used to get a kick out of it because they would play away games in the playoffs and he'd be listed as questionable, but they didn't even get on the team plane to go there. We'll see if they're being coy about that injury to Kawhi Leonard. But anytime your knee starts flaring up, it's going to flare up again. Missing so many games down the stretch and in question here for round number 1. I don't think Kawhi Leonard's body certainly is going to hold up either. And by the way, to your point earlier on the Toronto Raptors, have we ever seen that before? A guy that takes over a city, wins them a championship, is being loved, like, come back, whatever you want, whatever the price tag is, we'll pay you. And he's like, I'll show up to the parade, and I'm going out with my Uncle Dennis to Los Angeles. Wild times all the way around. Let's talk about fading the public up next right here on the Early Line.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's when he swung it easy at three-quarter golf swings, and he pretty much hit his number all the time. Dude, but when he hit something full, he hit it 20 yards over the greens at times. He's like, what are you doing?
He's just smiley, happy, and a freakish athlete golf robot that's going to be right there winning majors for the next 10-plus years. It's amazing.
Did you say he was smiling or smiley?
Only on SportsGrid.
They're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, yeah, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Talked about the Otani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Quick little segment here to end hour number 2. Before we hit hour number 3, big topics, big guests all the way around the NHL final day of the regular season. Joe Madden will come on. Craig Mish coming on to talk some Major League Baseball and the hottest topics. But before we get there, we love this segment here because we like to reach out to the people in a Fade the Public poll to let them know where we're actually coming from, but also get their feedback. The question today at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV on X, which sport has the best postseason? And look at this, at Rightside VP, at Davis Maddock, monster votes across the board. The topics where could be included, Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL were the 4 topics here. Before I get to exactly the way I voted, the public saying, whoa, 45% coming in with the NFL, which is no surprise here, followed by the NHL at 38%, which I absolutely agree with. But look at the NBA. We're about on the verge of having an unbelievable NBA run, Davis. 6% in dead last place. How about that?
I mean, I don't agree with it. I am locked into the NBA playoffs. I enjoy it, but it like the thing that people like about postseason sports is the drama and the unpredictability, and the NBA playoffs don't really get unpredictable until the conference finals, and even then, sometimes the conference finals are a total walkover. People love the single elimination. Also, the people voting for the NHL, they clearly do not watch very much NHL playoffs. What they mean is they mean a Game 7 in the NHL playoffs where it's just like completely insane. No one can breathe. People are falling over. It's absolutely nuts. I promise you, no one is watching Game 3 of Penguins Islanders. Like, that's got like less than 1 million people are watching the Game 3 of the Eastern Conference, NHL playoffs. I promise you.
I got to tell you, though, like the NHL 37.8%, there's probably a good chance that if the Flyers had made the playoffs, they would be overtaking the NFL for most exciting and best postseason here. Just a thought process that I have. But we'll get to this topics and much, much more in hour number 3. Come on, man. 2 hours down. 1 more hour to go. There's no better place to be than right here on the Sports Grid Network, talking with Davis and Donnie in the morning right here on the early line.